A 4-year-old homeless girl sees a millionaire being branded with an iron, but she grabs a stick and does something that shocks everyone. Comment what you think will happen. Your opinion is very important, and subscribe to my channel to support my work. Your help is very important. The July sun beat down on the streets of Sedona, Arizona, with an intensity that made the asphalt shimmer. At 3 in the afternoon, when even the stray dogs sought shade under parked cars, a small figure walked barefoot through the town square. Lily, just 4 years old, clutched a cracked plastic cup in her dirty hands, trying to muster the courage to approach the tourists visiting the famous red rocks. Her brown hair was tangled, and her dress, a faded pink sundress that had long ago been white, clung to her thin body with sweat. The little girl's big, dark eyes watched every movement around her with a disturbing intelligence for someone so small. She had learned to read people, to identify who might give her a few coins, and who would simply ignore her. Lily had been living on the streets of Sedona for 3 weeks. Her Uncle Ray, a 50-year-old with a serious drinking problem, had abandoned her in the town square after losing his job at the local hardware store. "I can't take care of a kid," he had slurred, before simply walking away and never returning. The girl had waited for 2 whole days in the same spot, believing he would come back, until hunger took over. That sweltering afternoon, as she timidly approached a couple of tourists photographing the local church, Lily heard screams coming from the alley behind the main bakery. "Grandma's goodies!" They were cries of pain, cries of someone in distress. Her small steps instinctively led her towards the sound, driven by a childish curiosity that had not yet learned to fear danger. What she saw when she turned the corner made her heart pound. A middle-aged man, well-dressed, was lying face down on the ground, while 2 burly men held him down. One of them held a smoking iron, and every few seconds pressed the hot object against the prone man's back. The smell of burning flesh, mixed with the aroma of fresh bread from the nearby bakery, created a nauseating combination. "Where's the rest of the money, Valentine?" shouted one of the attackers, a bald man with a snake tattoo on his left arm. "You thought you could screw us over?" "I already paid everything I owed," groaned the man on the ground, whom Lily now knew was called Valentine. "Please stop this." "Liar!" bellowed the second attacker, a skinny guy with scars on his face. "Your nephew told us where you hide the money. Another 30 grand or you don't get out of here alive." Lily remained hidden behind a dumpster for a few seconds, her little body trembling with fear. But when she saw the hot iron approaching the man's back again, something inside her snapped. It was as if all the injustices she had suffered in her 4 years of life condensed into that moment of pure fury. Without thinking about the consequences, the girl picked up a piece of wood lying on the ground, probably part of a broken crate, and ran towards the men, shouting with all the strength of her little lungs, "Leave him alone! Leave him alone!" She began to hit the men's legs with the stick with surprising force for such a small child. Her screams echoed through the narrow alley, mixed with swear words she had learned on the streets and that came out of her mouth like machine gun fire. The 2 men were so surprised by the appearance of the fierce child that for a few seconds they couldn't react. It was as if a little demon had appeared out of nowhere to defend them from an invisible threat. "What the hell?" muttered the bald man, trying to get away from the girl's blows. "It's just some crazy kid," said the skinny one, but he was already clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Lily continued screaming and hitting, her eyes shining with fierce determination. "You're mean, mean! Go away!" The noise had started to attract attention. Windows opened in nearby buildings, distant voices began to echo, and the 2 men realized that the situation was getting out of control. "Let's get out of here," said the bald man to his partner, dropping the hot iron on the ground. "This has turned into a circus." "But the money," protested the skinny one, "we'll come back later." "Let's go now." The 2 men ran out of the alley, leaving behind the still smoking iron and Valentine Ribeiro unconscious on the dirty ground. Lily remained beside the injured man, holding his hand to his shoulder and whispering words of comfort that she had heard from her mother long ago, before everything fell apart. "Don't die, mister," she said, her tears falling on the stranger's sweaty face. "Don't die. Lily will take care of you." When Donna, the owner of Grandma's Goodies Bakery, finally arrived at the alley accompanied by other people, she found a scene she would never forget. A 4-year-old girl caressing the graying hair of an injured man, humming a lullaby with the sweetest voice she had ever heard. The ambulance siren cut through the stifling air of the Arizona afternoon, echoing through the narrow streets of Sedona. Valentine was taken unconscious to the regional hospital, his back marked by deep burns that would form permanent scars. While the paramedics worked, Lily remained sitting on the curb, watching everything with her big, frightened eyes. "Whose child is this?" asked Sergeant Morales of the local police department, looking around for someone responsible. "Nobody knows," replied Donna, wiping her hands on her bakery apron. "She showed up here about 3 weeks ago, begging for food. Looks abandoned." The officer squatted down in front of Lily, trying to use a gentle tone. "What's your name, sweetie?" "Lily," she replied, her voice still trembling with shock. "Is the mister gonna be okay?" "Yes, he will. You were very brave today. Can you tell me what happened here?" To the surprise of everyone present, Lily began to describe the events with impressive accuracy for a 4-year-old. She remembered not only what she had seen, but details that even the adults hadn't paid attention to. "The bald man had a snake drawn on his arm," she said, pointing to her own left wrist. "And the other one had ugly marks on his face, like someone had scratched him with fingernails." "Scars?" asked the sergeant, taking notes. "Yeah, and they talked about the mister's nephew. They said the nephew told them where he hides money." The officer stopped writing and looked at the girl more closely. That information was too valuable to come from a child who was just passing by. "Are you sure about what you heard, Lily?" "Yes. I remember everything," she replied naturally. "I always remember everything." 2 hours later, when Valentine regained consciousness in the hospital, the first thing he asked about was the brave little girl. Nurse Betty, a kind woman of 52, told him that Lily was in the waiting room, being taken care of by a social worker who had been called to deal with the child's abandoned situation. "She saved your life," said the nurse, adjusting the IV drip in the patient's vein. "If it weren't for her, those men would have continued." Valentine closed his eyes, feeling a mixture of physical and emotional pain. The burns on his back burned like fire, but it was the implicit betrayal in the situation that hurt him the most. His nephew, Kevin, the only relative he had left, had provided information to the attackers. The family he had tried so hard to protect and help financially had handed him over to thugs. "I want to see the girl," he murmured to the nurse. "You need to rest, and the social worker wants to talk to you about her." In the waiting room, Sarah Johnson, 45, watched Lily with professional concern. As a social worker for over 20 years, she had seen many children in vulnerable situations, but there was something special about this girl. Lily did not demonstrate the typical behavior of a traumatized child. On the contrary, she seemed more concerned about the state of health of the man she had saved than with her own situation. "Lily, I need to ask you some questions," said Sarah, sitting down next to her. "Where are your parents?" "My mom left when I was really little," replied the girl, swinging her legs that didn't reach the ground. "And my Uncle Ray left me in the town square and never came back." "How long ago did that happen?" "Lots of days. I count by the suns that come up. It's been 22 suns." Sarah was impressed with the girl's ability to quantify time so precisely. "And where have you been sleeping?" "Behind the church there's a warm place, and when it rains, Donna lets me stay in the bakery." The social worker's heart sank. This child had spent 3 weeks alone on the streets, surviving on the kindness of strangers, and still maintained a serenity that bordered on the surreal. "What do you want to happen now, Lily?" The girl thought for a moment, biting her lower lip. I want the mister to get better. He looked very sad when the bad men were hurting him. At that moment, Valentine appeared in the doorway of the waiting room, supported by a nurse, and clearly in pain with every movement. His eyes immediately searched for Lily, and when he found her, a weak smile appeared on his face, marked by suffering. "Hi, little warrior," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Lily jumped off the chair and ran to him, but stopped a few inches away, as if afraid to hurt him even more. "Are you feeling better, mister?" she asked, her eyes shining with tears of relief. "Yes, I am, thanks to you. You saved me." "You were the one who taught me," said Lily, surprising everyone. "What do you mean, honey?" asked Valentine, confused. "My Grandpa Joe always told stories about a very good boss who helped everyone. He showed me your picture and said you were like a son to him. When I saw you on the ground, I remembered the stories." The silence that followed was deafening. Valentine felt his legs tremble, not from the pain of the burns, but from the unexpected revelation. Joe Miller had been his first employee, a man who became like a father to him when his own family rejected him for wanting to open a bakery instead of following a law career. "Joe is your grandfather?" he asked. His voice choked. "Was. He went to heaven when I was really little, but he always said that if I ever met you, I needed to be a good girl because you were special." Sarah watched the scene with growing perplexity. The connections that were being revealed seemed impossible to be coincidence. An abandoned child saves exactly the man her deceased grandfather used to admire. "Mr. Valentine," she said, intervening in the conversation, "we need to talk about Lily's situation. She needs a temporary home while we try to locate relatives or find a foster family." Valentine looked at the girl, who was staring at him with absolute confidence, as if she already knew what his answer would be. "No," he said firmly, "she's staying with me." "Sir, do you understand that there are legal procedures? I understand that this child saved my life and that she has a connection with someone very important to me. I'm not going to abandon her now." Lily smiled for the first time since everything had started, a smile that illuminated her entire small and dirty face. But outside the hospital, hidden behind a tree, Kevin watched the whole scene through the window, his face contorted by worry and something that looked a lot like fear. 3 days after the attack, Valentine was discharged from the hospital with strict instructions for rest and special care for the burns. His house, a spacious colonial building in the most upscale neighborhood of Sedona, echoed with a silence he wasn't used to. For the first time in years, he wasn't alone. Lily walked through the rooms with childish curiosity, carefully touching the objects as if they were fragile treasures. "This was Grandpa Joe's favorite chair," she said, pointing to a leather armchair in the living room. "He told me you let him rest here after work." Valentine felt a pang in his chest. Joe really had spent many afternoons in that armchair, telling stories about his life in the countryside and sharing dreams for the future. He had never mentioned a granddaughter. "Lily, did your grandfather talk about his family?" he asked, trying to piece together more of the puzzle. "He said he had a daughter who lived far away, but that one day she would come back," replied the girl, climbing onto the armchair and snuggling in. "He said she was very pretty and smart, but that sometimes bad people made her sad." Before Valentine could ask any more questions, the doorbell rang. It was Sarah, carrying a folder full of documents and a worried expression. "Good morning, Mr. Valentine. How are the burns?" "Improving, thank you. Come in, please." Sarah greeted Lily with affection and sat down in the living room, organizing her papers. "I need to be direct with you. Lily's legal situation is complex. We have not been able to locate any close relatives, and the standard procedure would be to place her in a certified foster family." "But she can stay with me, can't she?" asked Lily, jumping off the armchair and positioning herself between the two adults. "It's not that simple, honey," explained Sarah. "There are rules to ensure your safety." Valentine leaned forward, ignoring the pain in his back. What kind of process would be required for me to become her temporary legal guardian? Complete social assessment, background check, psychological interviews, suitability of the residence. It would take at least 2 months. And in the meantime, where would she stay? In an institution or foster home? No, said Lily firmly, surprising the adults. I don't want to stay with other people. I want to stay with the mister that my grandpa liked so much. Valentine's phone rang, interrupting the conversation. It was Kevin, his voice sounding strangely nervous. Uncle, I heard you're doing better. Can I visit you this afternoon? Sure, Kevin. It's been a while. After hanging up, Valentine noticed that Lily had become very quiet, watching him intently. Who was that, mister? My nephew. Why do you ask? The bad men talked about a nephew. Said he told them secrets. Sarah looked up from her documents, interested in the girl's observation. Lily, are you sure about what you heard? Yes. They said your nephew told us where you hide the money. An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Valentine felt a knot growing in his stomach, but he tried to maintain his composure in front of Lily. In the afternoon, when Kevin arrived, he brought with him a bouquet of flowers and an overly concerned expression that did not go unnoticed by Lily's watchful eyes. Kevin, 29, had always been the problem nephew who lived on borrowing money and making promises he never kept. Uncle, you gave me such a terrible scare, he said, hugging Valentine with exaggerated care. When I heard what happened, I was desperate. How did you hear? Asked Valentine, noticing the tension in his nephew's voice. Well, the whole town is talking about it. An attack in downtown Sedona doesn't go unnoticed. Lily remained partially hidden behind Joe's armchair, observing Kevin's every move. There was something in the way he spoke, a nervousness that she had learned to recognize on the streets. It was the same way people acted when they lied to get something. And who is this little princess? Asked Kevin, forcing a smile in Lily's direction. Lily, the girl who saved me. Oh, the brave child everyone is talking about. Hi, sweetie. Lily didn't answer, just shrank further behind the armchair. Kevin noticed the reaction and tried to approach. Don't be shy, I brought you some chocolate. She doesn't like chocolate, lied Valentine, noticing the girl's discomfort. During the visit, Kevin asked seemingly innocent questions about the attack, demonstrating an excessive interest in the details that Lily had provided to the police. He wanted to know if she had recognized the attackers, if she had heard names, if she remembered anything specific. Why do you want to know so much about the bad men? Asked Lily suddenly, coming out from behind the armchair and staring directly at Kevin. It's just worry, little one. I want to make sure they don't come back to hurt my uncle. They won't come back, she said with conviction, because now everyone knows what they look like. After Kevin left, Lily approached Valentine, who was clearly disturbed by the visit. Mister, can I tell you a secret? Of course, little one. I think your nephew was lying. He was making the same faces that Uncle Ray made when he drank and told lies. Valentine felt a chill run down his spine. The intuition of a 4-year-old was confirming his own suspicions. That night, after Lily fell asleep in the guest room he had set up for her, Valentine stayed awake thinking about the day's revelations. The connection with Joe, the girl's precise observations about the attack, and now the suspicions about Kevin. Everything seemed to be fitting together in a disturbing way. He picked up an old photo of Joe that he kept on his desk. The man was smiling next to one of the first bakeries, holding a baby in his arms. On the back of the photo, in Joe's careful handwriting, was written, "With my little granddaughter Lily, 6 months." Valentine dropped the photo from his trembling hands. Joe had mentioned the granddaughter, yes, but he had never said that she was in a vulnerable situation. Why had he never asked for help? Upstairs, Lily tossed and turned in her dreams, murmuring words that sounded like grandpa and bakery. And somewhere in town, Kevin was having a sleepless night, knowing that his little betrayal had created consequences he never imagined he would have to face. The next morning, everything would change again when Sarah arrived with information that none of them expected about Lily's family. Sarah arrived the next morning with an even larger folder and an expression that mixed surprise with worry. She found Valentine and Lily having breakfast in the kitchen. The girl had insisted on helping prepare the toast, claiming that Grandpa Joe taught me how to make warm bread. "Mr. Valentine, I need to share some important discoveries," said Sarah, sitting down at the table. "I was able to trace part of Lily's family history." "What did you find?" asked Valentine, offering coffee to the social worker. "Lily's mother is named Joanna Miller, is 26 years old, and is alive." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Lily's spoon hitting the plate. The girl had stopped eating and was staring blankly at Sarah. "My mum didn't go to heaven?" she asked, her voice small and confused. "No, honey. She is working in Flagstaff, about 2 hours from here. She's a waitress at a hotel." Valentine felt his heart race. Why did she abandon Lily? "The story is complicated," continued Sarah, consulting her papers. "Joanna fled an abusive relationship when Lily was 2 years old. She left the girl with her father, Joe, thinking it would be temporary. When Joe passed away, Joanna was being harassed by her ex and couldn't come back. Lily ended up staying with Ray, Joe's brother." "So my mom didn't really abandon me?" asked Lily, tears welling up in her eyes. "No, sweetie. She was forced to leave to protect you both." Valentine processed the information with difficulty. Joe had never mentioned his daughter's problems, always speaking of her with pride and longing, but without revealing the painful details. "There's one more thing," said Sarah, hesitant. "Joanna doesn't know that her father passed away. Ray never told her. She sends money every month to an old address, thinking she is supporting Lily and her father." The revelation hit Valentine like a punch. "You mean she's paying for care that her daughter isn't receiving?" "Exactly. Ray took the money and used it to drink. When he lost his job and couldn't support the addiction anymore, he simply abandoned Lily." Lily had stopped crying and was now watching the conversation intently. "Can I see my mom?" "It's complicated, sweetie," replied Sarah. "First, we need to contact her and explain the situation." At that moment, the doorbell rang. It was Dan Anderson, Valentine's neighbor, accompanied by his wife, Carol. The couple, 38 and 35 years old respectively, lived next door and had always shown an excessive curiosity about Valentine's financial life. "Valentine, my friend," said Dan with forced enthusiasm. "We came to see how you're recovering." "And to meet the famous heroine of the town," added Carol, looking at Lily with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Valentine invited them in, introducing Sarah as the social worker responsible for Lily's case. The couple exchanged meaningful glances when they learned that the girl might be staying with Valentine. "What an interesting situation," commented Carol. "An orphan child being adopted by a single, wealthy man. Not common, is it?" "Lily is not an orphan," corrected Sarah, noticing the insinuating tone of the woman, "and we are still discussing the best arrangements for her." Of course," said Dan. "It's just that, well, people in town are talking. They find this coincidence strange." "What coincidence?" asked Valentine, feeling irritation grow. "A child appearing out of nowhere exactly when you are attacked, saving your life, and ending up living in your house. It seems very convenient." Lily, who was playing quietly with some toys that Sarah had brought, raised her head and fixed her eyes on Carol. "Do you think I lied?" she asked, with an unsettling frankness. "No, sweetie, it's just that, because I don't lie. My Grandpa Joe said that lying is for weak people." Dan quickly changed the subject. "And what about the thugs, Valentine? Has the police found anything?" "They are investigating," replied Valentine, uncomfortable with the question. "It must have been a random robbery," suggested Carol. "These are dangerous times for those who have money." "It wasn't random," said Lily suddenly, making everyone turn to her. "They knew his name, and they knew about the hidden money." The silence in the room became heavy. Dan and Carol exchanged another look, this one laden with nervousness. "Children have fertile imaginations," said Carol, forcing a laugh. "I don't imagine things," replied Lily, getting up and walking to Valentine. "I remember everything I see and hear, always." After the couple left, Sarah made notes in her folder while watching Lily play. "Mr. Valentine, I need to tell you that this child's observations are extraordinary. She has a memory that borders on the phenomenal. I realize that. It's like she's a little camera recording everything. That could be very valuable for the police investigation, and also very dangerous if the criminals discover what she knows." Valentine felt a chill. He hadn't thought of that possibility. "There's one more thing about Joanna I need to tell you," continued Sarah. "She's been working in Flagstaff for 3 years, but she recently started asking about returning to Sedona. Apparently, she's planning to visit her father soon." "Without knowing he passed away," murmured Valentine. "Exactly, and without knowing that her daughter is here with us." Lily stopped playing and approached them again. "When my mum comes, will she take me away?" The simple question carried so much emotional weight that it left the two adults speechless. In just a few days, this girl had become part of Valentine's life in a way he couldn't explain. "We don't know yet, little one," said Sarah gently. "First, we need to talk to her." "Can I stay with the mister and see my mom too?" asked Lily, revealing an impressive emotional wisdom for her age. "Maybe," replied Valentine, picking her up despite the pain in his back. "We'll see what we can arrange." That afternoon, after Sarah left with the promise to contact Joanna in the coming days, Valentine received an unexpected call. It was Sergeant Morales with information about the investigation. "Mr. Valentine, we were able to identify one of the attackers through the girl's description. The snake tattoo on his wrist was key. He is a known debt collector." "And what did he say about the motive for the attack?" "We haven't been able to arrest him yet, but we discovered something interesting. Someone gave him detailed information about your routine and where you keep money at home." Valentine closed his eyes, feeling the confirmation of what he already suspected. Someone close. It seems so. The girl mentioned that they talked about a nephew. "Do you have any nephews who know these details about your life?" Before Valentine could answer, Lily appeared beside him, tugging at his shirt. "Mister, there's a man watching our house from far away," she said, pointing to the window. Valentine looked in the indicated direction and saw a familiar figure quickly walking away from the corner. It was Kevin, once again watching the house without approaching. The tension in Valentine's house increased every day. After spotting Kevin watching the property, he decided to confront his nephew directly. The next morning he called asking for an urgent meeting at Grandma's Goodies, neutral ground where Lily would be safe under Donna's care while they talked. "Uncle, you seem worried," said Kevin upon arriving, his hands trembling slightly as he stirred the sugar in his coffee. "Are you still in pain from the burns?" "The physical pain is getting better, Kevin, but the emotional pain, and that's getting worse. I don't understand." Valentine leaned over the table, fixing his eyes on his nephew's. "The police discovered that someone passed detailed information about my routine to the attackers. Someone who knows where I keep money at home." Kevin's face paled visibly. "Uncle, you don't think I'm asking, Kevin. Directly. Did you have any involvement with what happened to me?" On the other side of the bakery, Lily was playing with a rag doll that Donna had given her, but her attentive ears caught every word of the conversation. The girl had developed an impressive ability to appear distracted while absorbing important information. "How can you think that of me?" protested Kevin, but his voice sounded forced. "I'm your family. Family that has been constantly asking me for loans in recent months. Family that knows every detail of my house because they grew up there." Kevin swallowed hard. I have some financial problems, yes, but I would never do anything to hurt you." "What kind of financial problems?" The pause that followed was too long to be innocent. Kevin looked around the bakery, as if looking for an escape before answering. Gambling debts, bets that went wrong. But that has nothing to do with... With whom do you owe money, Kevin? Another revealing silence. Lily discreetly approached the table, pretending to chase her doll that had fallen close to the two men. People who aren't very patient with delays, murmured Kevin finally. The same people who attacked me? Kevin didn't answer, but his panicked expression said it all. Valentine felt his heart race, the confirmation of his worst suspicions materializing before him. My God, Kevin. What have you done? I didn't know they were going to hurt you so much, exploded the young man, the words coming out before he could control them. They said it would just be a scare, so you'd lend me money without questioning. The silence that followed was deafening. Donna stopped wiping the counter, other customers suspended their conversations, and Lily stood completely still, processing the confession she had just heard. You handed your own uncle over to thugs, said Valentine, his voice low but filled with a deep pain. I was desperate. They threatened to break my legs if I didn't pay by the end of the month. So you decided it was better that they broke mine. Kevin buried his face in his hands. It wasn't supposed to be like this. They promised it would be quick, that you'd get scared and lend me the money. I never imagined they'd use a hot iron. Lily approached even closer, her small voice cutting through the tension like a sharp knife. You're a bad man, she said, looking directly at Kevin. You hurt someone who loved you. Kevin raised his red eyes to the girl. You don't understand, kid. Sometimes adults do bad things because they don't have a choice. There's always a choice, replied Lily, with a wisdom that impressed everyone present. My Grandpa Joe said we can always choose to do the right thing. Valentine stood up slowly, each movement filled with disappointment and pain. You're going to turn yourself into the police, Kevin. Today. Uncle, please. No, it's over. You betrayed the trust of the only person who has ever helped you. There's no going back. Kevin left the bakery in tears, leaving Valentine and Lily alone with the weight of the revelation. The girl approached and held the hand of the man who had become her anchor of safety. You're very sad, she observed. I am, little one. Sometimes the people we love disappoint us in ways that hurt a lot. But you still have me. And I'll never hurt you. The simple promise of a 4-year-old touched Valentine in a way he didn't expect. For the first time since the attack, he cried, not from physical pain, but from a complex mixture of loss, betrayal, and an unexpected love that was blossoming. That afternoon, Sarah arrived with news that completely changed the course of the situation. She had managed to contact Joanna Miller, and Lily's mother's reaction had been devastating. She didn't know that her father had passed away, reported Sarah, sitting in Valentine's living room. When I told her about Ray abandoning Lily, she was desperate. She's coming here today. How did she react to knowing that Lily is with me? Initially with suspicion. But when I explained about you having known Joe and about how everything happened, she calmed down. She said her father always spoke of you with affection. Lily, who was drawing at the coffee table, raised her head. Is my mom coming today? Yes, honey. She should arrive before dinner. Is she going to take me away? We don't know yet, replied Sarah honestly. You need to get to know each other again first. The rest of the day passed in a mixture of anxiety and expectation. Valentine tidied the house, Lily changed clothes 3 times, wanting to look pretty for Mommy, and both walked around the room like caged lions. At 6 in the afternoon, a taxi stopped in front of the house. A young brunette woman, thin, with big eyes identical to Lily's, got out. Joanna carried only a small bag and an expression of nervousness mixed with fierce determination. When Lily saw her mother through the window, she didn't immediately run to the door as Valentine expected. Instead, she stood still watching, as if she were processing the reality of a person who had become almost mythical in her memory. It's her, whispered Lily. It's my real mom. Joanna climbed the steps of the porch with hesitant steps. When Valentine opened the door, the two stared at each other for a moment. She seeing the man that her father always described as a son, he seeing Joe's eyes reflected in his daughter's young face. "Mr. Valentine," she said, her voice choked, "thank you for taking care of my girl." "Joanna, you're just like your father." It was then that Lily appeared in the doorway, shy but curious. Mother and daughter looked at each other for long seconds, 3 years of separation weighing between them like an abyss that needed to be carefully crossed. "Hi, my princess," said Joanna, crouching down to be at her daughter's height. "Hi, Mommy," replied Lily, taking a small step towards her mother. "You got prettier." And at that moment, with tears streaming down the faces of all those present, a new phase of the story was beginning. One that would test all the bonds that had been formed and force decisions that no one was prepared to make. The reunion between Joanna and Lily was delicate as fine crystal. Seated in Valentine's living room, mother and daughter observed each other with a mixture of recognition and estrangement. 3 years were an eternity in the life of a child, and Joanna realized that her daughter had changed in ways that went beyond physical growth. "Do you remember me singing that song before you went to sleep?" asked Joanna, trying to find points of connection. "I remember a little," replied Lily, playing nervously with her pigtails. But Grandpa Joe sang it more. The mention of her father made Joanna's eyes fill with tears. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here when he passed." "He wasn't mad at you," said Lily naturally. "He always said you were brave and that one day you would come back." Valentine watched the scene from the sofa next to them, feeling simultaneously intrusive and protective. Sarah took discreet notes, assessing the dynamics between mother and daughter for her official reports. "Joanna," said Valentine gently, "I need you to know that Lily has been through a lot of trauma. Ray's abandonment, the weeks on the street witnessing my attack, she's going to need patience and special care." "I understand," replied Joanna, but her voice trembled slightly. "It's just that I don't have a place to live here in Sedona. My job is in Flagstaff, and the room I rent there is too small for both of us." "Mommy," interrupted Lily, "are you going to take me away?" The direct question left Joanna speechless for a few seconds. She looked at her daughter, then at Valentine, clearly torn between maternal desire and practical reality. I want to have you with me, princess, but I need time to organize our life." "How much time?" asked Lily, demonstrating a concern too mature for her age. "I don't know yet." It was then that something happened that no one expected. Lily got up, walked to Joanna and held her hands. "Mommy, you can stay here too. Mr. Valentine is good and has a big house." The embarrassment in the air was almost palpable. Valentine shifted uncomfortably on the sofa. Sarah stopped writing, and Joanna blushed. "Honey, that's not how it works," began Joanna. "I can't just—" "Why not?" insisted Lily. "You can work at Mr. Valentine's bakeries. He knew Grandpa Joe and liked him a lot." Valentine found himself in an impossible position. He couldn't deny hospitality to Joe's daughter, but he also hadn't planned to turn his house into a family shelter. Before he could answer, Sarah spoke up. "Actually, this could be an interesting temporary solution," she said, surprising everyone. "It would allow Lily to maintain the stability she has found here while rebuilding the bond with her mother." "But I can't accept that," protested Joanna. "It would be abusing Mr. Valentine's kindness." "It would be an opportunity," corrected Valentine, surprising himself with his answer. "Joe was like a father to me. Taking care of his family would be an honor." That night, after much debate, it was decided that Joanna would stay in the guest room for a few weeks while she looked for a job in the region and assessed her options. Lily slept between her mother and the door, as if she were symbolically guarding both exits. The next day, however, the situation became complicated when Dan and Carol showed up at Valentine's house with expressions of false concern. "Valentine, friend," said Dan. "The whole town is commenting that now you are sheltering the girl's mother too." "And what's the problem?" asked Valentine, already annoyed with the tone of the conversation. "There's no problem," said Carol quickly. "It's just that, well, it seems strange. A single man, a young woman, a child. People are asking questions." "What kind of questions?" Joanna's voice came from the doorway. She had arrived from town, where she had gone to look for a job, and had overheard the conversation. "Nothing much," said Dan, clearly uncomfortable at having been caught. "It's just that in a small town, you know how it is." "No, I don't," replied Joanna, demonstrating a firmness that surprised Valentine. "Please explain to me what kind of questions people are asking about me and my daughter." Carol exchanged a nervous glance with her husband. "Well, some people think there might be ulterior motives on both sides." "Ulterior motives?" Joanna approached the couple, her eyes flashing with indignation. "Are you insinuating that I am using my daughter to take advantage of Mr. Valentine?" "No, that's not what—" Dan tried to back away. "Or are you suggesting that he has inappropriate interest in a 4-year-old child?" The silence that followed was charged with tension. Lily appeared in the room, sensing the heavy atmosphere. "Why is everyone mad?" she asked. "No one's mad, little one," said Valentine, but his voice was strained. "Our neighbors were just visiting." Carol tried to smile at Lily. "Hi, honey. How are you adapting with your mom?" "Very well," replied Lily. "My mom is a hard worker just like Grandpa Joe. She's going to work at the bakeries and earn honest money." "That's good," said Dan, but there was something forced in his tone. "And don't you miss the freedom you had before?" The strange question made Valentine frown. "What freedom?" "Well, a child alone on the streets can see many interesting things, overhear conversations, meet people." It was then that Lily demonstrated once again her sharp perception. "Do you want to know if I saw you talking to the bad men?" The question fell like a bomb in the room. Dan and Carol paled visibly, and Joanna looked confusedly between her daughter and the neighbors. "What bad men, Lily?" asked Joanna. "The ones who hurt Mr. Valentine. I saw Mr. Dan talking to them once, near the bank." That's impossible," stammered Dan. "The girl must be confusing." "I don't confuse," said Lily firmly. "I remember everything. You gave money to the bald man with the snake on his arm." Valentine stood up slowly, his expression becoming dangerous. "Dan, what is Lily saying?" "It's a child's lie. She has a fertile imagination," protested Carol. "She's not lying," said Joanna, watching her daughter closely. "Lily inherited her father's memory. Joe never forgot a face or a conversation." The room fell silent. Dan ran a hand through his hair, sweating visibly. I can explain," he said finally. "Then explain," ordered Valentine. "They approached me, said they had business with you but that you were avoiding them, asked me to confirm your schedules." "And you confirmed?" I thought it was just normal business. They paid well for the information." Carol covered her face with her hands. "Dan, you said it was just about bakery schedules." "That's what I thought." Joanna approached her neighbor's husband. "You helped the men who tortured Mr. Valentine." "The man who saved my daughter? I didn't know they were going to hurt him," said Dan desperately. "I just passed on information about his routine." "Information that almost cost my life," said Valentine, his voice low but charged with contained fury. Lily approached Joanna, seeking maternal comfort in the face of the tension that hung in the air. "Mommy, are they going to arrest Mr. Dan like they're going to arrest Kevin?" The innocent question of the girl revealed that the situation was much more complicated than anyone imagined. And from the expression on Carol's face, there were even more secrets to be revealed. The revelation about Dan's involvement left the room in shock. Carol looked at her husband as if she were seeing a stranger, while Joanna instinctively pulled Lily closer to her. Valentine remained standing, trying to process that yet another person he trusted had contributed to his suffering. "Dan," said Valentine, his voice controlled but icy. "You're going to tell me exactly what happened. Everything." "They showed up at my door 2 weeks ago," began Dan, the words tumbling out. "Two men saying they had pending business with you, but that you were hard to find. And you just decided to help strangers against your neighbor. They offered $5,000 just for the information about your routine," exploded Dan. "You know how hard it is for me. The job at the hardware store doesn't pay anything. The bills are piling up." "So you sold me out for $5,000, said Valentine, the pain of betrayal evident in his voice. Carol finally found her voice. "Dan, you didn't tell me about money. You said they just wanted to know if Valentine would be home on Tuesday. Because if I told you about the money, you would want to spend it all on your junk," retorted Dan, revealing marital tensions that went beyond the current situation. Lily, watching the discussion closely, tugged at Joanna's blouse. "Mommy, Mrs. Carroll is lying too." All eyes turned to the girl. "Why do you say that, honey?" asked Joanna. "Because I saw her with Mr. Dan when they talked to the bad men. She was across the street, but she was watching everything." Carol turned as white as a sheet. That's not true." "It is," insisted Lily. "You were wearing the green dress with yellow flowers, the same one you're wearing today." The specific detail about the clothing made everyone realize that the girl was not making it up. Joanna crouched down to her daughter's height. "Lily, are you absolutely sure of what you're saying?" "Yes, Mommy. I always pay attention to people's clothes, and I remember everything I see." Carol collapsed into a chair, defeated. Okay, I knew about the meeting, but I swear we thought it was just normal business." "Normal business doesn't involve payments of $5,000 for information about a neighbor's routine," said Sarah, who had remained silent until then, taking notes of everything. "We were desperate," cried Carol. "Dan has a problem. He bets on online games. We lost our savings. We owe 3 months of mortgage payments." "And you thought handing your neighbor over to thugs was the solution?" asked Joanna, her indignation growing. "We didn't know they were going to hurt him," repeated Dan. "They said they just wanted to talk about borrowed money." Valentine sat down heavily on the sofa, the weight of the multiple betrayals starting to take their emotional toll. In just a few days, he had discovered that his nephew and his neighbors had conspired against him. "Who else knows about this?" he asked. "Nobody," said Carol quickly. "We didn't tell anyone." "And the money, do you still have it?" Dan lowered his head in shame. "I spent it all on the bets the same night. I thought I could double the amount and pay off our debts." "Of course you did," muttered Valentine. At that moment the phone rang. It was Sergeant Morales with updates on the investigation. "Mr. Valentine, we have news. We managed to arrest the man with the snake tattoo. He is willing to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence." "What did he say?" "He confirmed that he received information from 2 different sources. A young man who identified himself as your nephew and a couple of neighbors. He also said something interesting about the real reason for the loan that originated this whole situation." Valentine put the phone on speakerphone so everyone could hear. "What reason?" "Apparently, the money you lent wasn't for who you thought it was. It was to pay for medical treatment for a pregnant woman, a woman named Joanna Miller." The silence in the room was absolute. Joanna let out a muffled cry, bringing her hands to her mouth. "What do you mean?" asked Valentine. "The man said that Joe Miller sought out loan sharks because he needed urgent money to pay for the hospital where his daughter was hospitalized with pregnancy complications. When you lent the money to Joe, he used it to pay off the debt with these criminals." Joanna began to cry silently. "Dad never told me this. I thought Mr. Valentine had lent him money because of the bakery. Joe protected you from knowing that he had become indebted to dangerous people," continued the sergeant. "But when he passed away without fully paying off the debt with Mr. Valentine, the loan sharks saw an opportunity to pressure you to return the money they considered rightfully theirs. They came after me because my father owed them." asked Valentine, still processing the information. Not exactly. They knew that you had lent money to Joe, and that part of that money had taken them out of the picture temporarily. In their minds, you were responsible for them losing a paying customer. The attack was revenge and an attempt at compensation. Joanna stood up abruptly, walking to Valentine. "Mr. Valentine, my father ruined your life. Because of me, because of my medical treatment, you almost died." "Joanna, don't—" began Valentine. "No," she interrupted. "I can't accept your kindness knowing this. I can't stay in your house. I can't let you take care of Lily, knowing that we are responsible for everything that happened." Lily, confused by the adult's agitation, approached Joanna. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Because maybe we need to leave, Princess." "Why? We didn't do anything wrong." It was Valentine who answered, standing up and addressing Joanna. "She's right. You didn't do anything wrong. Joe was a good man who did what any father would do to save his daughter. I lent the money because I wanted to help, and if that bothered some thugs, that's their problem, not ours. But Mr. Valentine—" "Joanna, your daughter saved my life. If there's a debt between our families, I'm the one who owes you." Dan, who had watched the entire revelation in growing silence, finally spoke up. "Valentine, I didn't know any of this. If I had known it was about Joe's family—" "That doesn't change anything, Dan," said Valentine firmly. "You still handed me over to thugs for money." "What's going to happen to us now?" asked Carol, fearing the answer. "You're going to turn yourselves in to the police and tell them everything you know," said Sarah, taking control of the situation. "And you're going to hope that the prosecutor considers your cooperation as a mitigating factor." After Dan and Carol left to turn themselves into the police, the house fell into contemplative silence. Joanna was still struggling with guilt. Valentine was processing all the revelations, and Lily, tired of so much adult tension, had snuggled up on the sofa with her doll. "You know what impresses me the most about all this?" said Valentine finally. "What?" asked Joanna. "How a 4-year-old girl managed to solve in days a mystery that could have taken months to unravel." Joanna looked at her daughter with pride and concern mixed together. She inherited that from her dad. He never forgot a face, a conversation, a detail. It's an impressive ability and potentially dangerous. "Why dangerous?" Valentine hesitated before answering. "Because if there are still people involved in this story who haven't been discovered, Lily may be seen as a threat." As if she had heard her name, Lily raised her head from the sofa. "Mr. Valentine, are there more bad people in our story?" The innocent question made the two adults exchange worried glances. They didn't know it yet, but the answer would come sooner than they imagined. A week after the revelations about Dan and Carol, life at Valentine's house had found a more peaceful rhythm. Joanna had gotten a job as a manager at Grandma's Goodies. Her experience in hospitality and Flagstaff, and her knowledge of the business inherited from conversations with Joe, made her a valuable employee. Lily frequented the bakery every afternoon, helping to organize the smaller breads and enchanting customers with her impressive memory for their usual orders. "The girl is a little human calculator," commented Donna to Valentine. "She remembers what each customer buys, how much they pay, even the change they usually give. It's scary and fascinating at the same time." Valentine watched Lily through the bakery window, seeing her arrange the rolls in perfect rows, her concentration absolute on such a simple task. The girl had transformed from a traumatized and abandoned child into a small force of nature that seemed to be healing not only her own life, but that of everyone around her. "Mr. Valentine," Sarah's voice pulled him from his thoughts. The social worker had become a constant presence in their lives, not only out of professional obligation, but out of genuine concern, and Valentine suspected for something more personal. "Hi, Sarah. How are the temporary guardianship papers coming?" "Progressing well. Actually, I wanted to talk about something different today." She hesitated, fidgeting with the folder. It's about the case. I received disturbing information. Valentine felt a chill in his stomach. What kind of information? The prosecutor who is handling the case against Kevin and the attackers called me this morning. Apparently, there's evidence that the loan sharking network that was pursuing Joe is larger than we thought. What do you mean? They weren't operating alone. They had a scheme set up specifically to identify people who were making significant loans in the region in order to then pressure both the debtor and the creditor. Valentine sat down heavily in a chair in the bakery. Are you saying that I became a target from the moment I lent money to Joe? Exactly. And there's more. They have a list of other local businessmen who have made similar loans. The prosecutor believes that you weren't the first and wouldn't be the last. At that moment, Joanna approached them, having finished serving a customer. Sorry to interrupt, but are you talking about those men? We are, replied Sarah, and unfortunately the news isn't good. Joanna pulled up a chair and joined them. What did you find out? Sarah consulted her notes. The investigation revealed that they kept detailed files on families in the region. They knew about people's financial situations, about loans, about vulnerabilities. Files on what families? Asked Valentine. Several, including yours, Joe's, and... She hesitated. Dan and Carol's. The neighbors were also targets. Joanna frowned. Apparently, yes. The scheme was more sophisticated than we thought. They identified indebted people and used them as informants in exchange for money or debt forgiveness. Valentine felt pieces falling into place in his mind. That's why Dan so easily agreed to pass information about me. It wasn't just greed, it was blackmail. Very likely, and there's something more worrying. Sarah lowered her voice. The leader of this operation still hasn't been identified. The men arrested are just enforcers. On the other side of the bakery, Lily had stopped organizing the breads and was staring intently at the street through the window. Her expression, normally cheerful and curious, was tense and focused. "Mommy," she called, "that man in the black suit is looking at us again." The three adults immediately turned to where Lily was pointing. Across the street, an elegant man of approximately 40 years was observing the bakery with obvious interest. When he realized that he had been noticed, he calmly walked away. "Who is he?" asked Joanna. "I've never seen him before," replied Valentine, but something about the man seemed vaguely familiar. "Lily, have you seen this man before?" asked Sarah. "Yes. He's appeared 3 times this week. He always stands across the street, looking." "Why didn't you say anything?" asked Joanna, worried. "I thought he liked to see people working," replied Lily innocently. "But today he looks different, more nervous." Sarah stood up immediately. "I'm going to call Sergeant Morales. This surveillance may be related to the case." While Sarah spoke on the phone, Valentine observed Lily more attentively. The girl had developed a keen instinct for detecting anomalous situations, probably a consequence of her weeks living on the streets. "Lily, when did you first see this man?" "It was on Monday, when Mommy started working here. He was talking to another man near the bank." "Talking to who?" Lily closed her eyes, concentrating. "An older man, with a big belly and half-bald hair. They seemed to be arguing about something." Valentine felt a shiver. The description resembled Walter Freeman, owner of the local real estate agency and one of the most influential businessmen in Sedona. "Lily, would you be able to recognize the older man if you saw him again?" "Yes. He had a dark spot on his right hand, as if he had hurt himself." The specific detail made Valentine certain. Freeman had burned his hand in a household accident months ago, and the mark was still visible. Sarah returned to the table with a grave expression. "Sergeant Morales is coming here now. He wants everyone to stay in the bakery until he arrives." "Why?" asked Joanna. "Because the man in the black suit may be connected with the case. And if Lily identified him as someone who is watching you, she may be in danger." At that moment, The bakery phone rang. Donna answered, spoke briefly, and addressed Valentine with concern. "It's for you. A man said he has important information about the girl's situation and wants to meet you tonight at the cemetery." "At the cemetery?" Valentine frowned. "What kind of information?" "He didn't say. He just said it was about Lily's safety and that you would understand when you got there." Joanna took Valentine's hand. "You're not going, are you?" "Of course not. It's obviously a trap." Lily, who had overheard the entire conversation, approached them. "Mr. Valentine, the man who called, was his voice deep and kind of raspy?" "Donna, what was the man's voice like?" asked Valentine. "Deep and raspy, yes. Like he smoked a lot." "It was the man with the big belly," said Lily with conviction. "The one who was talking to the man in the black suit." Before anyone could answer, Sergeant Morales entered the bakery, accompanied by 2 officers. His expression was serious and worried. "Mr. Valentine, we need to talk urgently. We have information that there is a mastermind behind this whole story who hasn't been identified yet. And apparently he hasn't given up on the original plans." "What original plans?" "To make you pay an amount much higher than the initial $5,000. The torture was just the beginning. If Lily hadn't interfered, they would have continued until you agreed to transfer properties." Joanna paled. "Properties? The bakeries? Someone wants to force Mr. Valentine to sell or transfer the bakery chain for a price well below the real value." Valentine felt like the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. "Someone is trying to steal my business? And using extremely violent methods to do it. The problem is that now they know that Lily can identify them. She has become a threat to their scheme." The silence in the bakery was broken only by the sound of everyone's heavy breathing. Lily, sensing the tension, approached Joanna and held her hand. "Mummy, are we going to have to leave?" The simple question summed up the fear that everyone was feeling. But before anyone could answer, a shadow passed by the bakery window, and everyone realized that the man in the black suit had returned. The appearance of the man in the black suit made Sergeant Morales act immediately. He instructed one of the officers to discreetly exit through the back of the bakery to try to approach the suspect, while keeping everyone else inside the establishment. Lily pressed her face against the window, watching the man's movements intently. "He's nervous," she observed. "He keeps looking at his watch and fidgeting with his phone." "Lily, get away from the window," pleaded Joanna, pulling her daughter out of sight. "But, Mommy, he's doing something strange. He's pointing the phone at us, like he's taking pictures." Sergeant Morales spoke quickly on the radio, coordinating with his colleague who had exited through the back. After a few tense minutes, his voice crackled back. "Sergeant, the suspect fled when he saw me approaching. I managed to see that he got into a black car with covered plates." "Understood," replied Morales. "Come back here." Valentine sat down heavily in a chair, the weight of the whole situation finally hitting him. "I can't believe this has turned into a pursuit. They really won't give up." "Mr. Valentine," said the sergeant, "I need to suggest some security measures. First, you can't stay alone in the house. Second, Lily shouldn't go out unaccompanied." "I can help," Sarah offered. "I can stay at the house at night, at least until we resolve this situation." Joanna looked at Valentine. "Maybe it's better if Lily and I go somewhere else. We don't want to put you in more danger." "No," Lily said firmly, surprising everyone with her determination. "We're a family now. Families don't separate when there's a problem." The wisdom of the 4-year-old touched the adults deeply. Valentine knelt in front of her. "You're right, little one. We are a family, and families protect each other." That night, Valentine's house was busier than usual. Sarah had brought some clothes to stay for a few days, and they had established an informal surveillance system. Someone always awake, doors and windows checked regularly, phone always at hand. Around 10 o'clock, when Lily was already asleep, the phone rang. Valentine answered cautiously. "Valentine Ribeiro." "Who's asking?" "Someone who can solve all your problems." or create many more depending on your cooperation. The voice was different from the one that had called Grandma's goodies, more polite, more refined, but equally menacing. What do you want? A civilized conversation about the future of your bakeries and about the safety of your makeshift family. Valentine signaled for Joanna and Sarah to come closer to the phone to listen. I have no interest in selling my businesses. Ah, but you should. Especially considering that a small child can be easily hurt in a town like Sedona, Arizona. Accidents happen, you know. The veiled threat against Lily made Valentine's blood boil. If you lay a finger on her. No need for threats, Mr. Ribeiro. Just good business sense. Tomorrow at 3 in the afternoon at Walter Freeman Real Estate Office. A friendly chat between businessmen. And if I don't show up, then our next conversation will be with little Lily. And she's so observant. It would be a shame if she witnessed something traumatic again. The call ended, leaving the three adults in tense silence. It was Walter Freeman, Valentine said. I'm sure of it. The man Lily saw talking to the man in the black suit, Joanna confirmed. Sarah was pale. They're using Lily as leverage. That's emotional kidnapping. And I'll have to go, Valentine said. I can't risk her safety. You're not going alone, Sarah said firmly. I'm calling Sergeant Morales right now. While Sarah spoke with the police, Joanna approached Valentine. There's something I need to tell you. Something I found out today at work. What is it? Donna told me that Walter Freeman tried to buy the land Grandma's goodies is on twice in the last few years. Both times you refused. That's right. He offered ridiculously low prices. And in the last attempt, 6 months ago, he said something strange to Donna. He said that Valentine would need to sell eventually, even if it was out of necessity. Valentine felt a chill. He's been planning this for 6 months? Looks like it, and there's more. Donna said that Walter asked specifically about your employees, your finances, even about your family. He was compiling a dossier on me. Exactly. And when Dad got sick and needed the loan, it must have been the perfect opportunity for Walter to put the plan into action. The next morning, Lily woke up earlier than usual and found the three adults in the kitchen, clearly having stayed up all night. Why are you up so early? She asked, rubbing her eyes. We had some things to talk about, Valentine replied, trying to sound casual. About the bad men? The girl's perception continued to impress everyone. How did you know? Because you have the same faces you had when you found out about Uncle Kevin and Mr. Dan, and because I heard the phone ring last night. Joanna knelt down to her daughter's level. Lily, honey, we might have to stay home today. No going to Grandma's goodies. Why? Valentine decided to be honest with her, within the appropriate limits for a child. Because there are still people who don't like that you remember so many things. And we want to keep you safe. I can help, Lily said seriously. I know a lot of things that can help catch the bad men. What kind of things? Sarah asked, interested. I remember other conversations I heard when I was on the street. Conversations about money and about forcing people to sell things. The three adults exchanged glances. What conversations, little one? Once I was sleeping behind the church when I heard two men talking about a list of rich people in town. They said names and how much each one was worth. Do you remember the names? Lily closed her eyes, concentrating. Mr. Valentine was on the list, and also the owner of the pharmacy, the one from the gas station, and the lady who owns the clothing store downtown. A list of local businessmen, Sarah murmured. That confirms it's a bigger scheme. There's more, Lily continued. One of the men said they had someone on the inside helping them. Someone who knew all the businesses in town. Someone on the inside. Like a local businessman, Valentine said, thinking of Walter. At that moment, the phone rang again. This time it was Sergeant Morales. Mr. Valentine, we have a problem. Walter Freeman has disappeared, the real estate office is closed, and neighbors said he left home early this morning with several suitcases. He fled? Looks like it. But he left a message with his secretary. He said that today's meeting has been moved to a more private location and that you would receive instructions. Before Valentine could respond, someone knocked on the front door. It was 2 slow knocks, then 3 quick ones, then 2 slow ones again. A clearly intentional pattern. "Nobody move," Sarah whispered, grabbing the phone to call for backup. But Lily had approached the window and was watching who was at the door. "It's the man in the black suit," she said. "But now he looks different. He looks sad, and he's alone." The girl's observation made everyone hesitate. Why would a dangerous man be sad? "Can I talk to you?" The voice came through the door. "I'm not who you think I am, and I have information that can save Lily's life." The man in the black suit's statement left everyone paralyzed. Sarah kept the phone in her hand, ready to call for backup, while Valentine debated whether to open the door. It was Lily who made the decision for them. "He's crying," she said, watching through the window. "Bad men don't cry." "Lily, get away from the window," Joanna asked, but the girl continued watching. "He has a picture in his hand, a picture of a little girl, like me." The specific observation made Valentine carefully approach the window. Indeed, the man was holding what appeared to be a photograph and wiping tears from his face with his free hand. "My name is Ricardo Mendez," the voice said through the door. "I'm a private investigator. I was hired to watch you, but not to hurt you." "Hired by whom?" Valentine asked through the locked door. "By Walter Freeman. But he lied about the reason. He said you were involved in suspicious activities and that he needed evidence." Sarah approached. "And you believed him?" "At first, yes. Until I found out the truth about what he's really doing." Valentine hesitated, then slowly turned the key in the lock. He opened the door just a few inches, keeping the security chain on. Ricardo Mendez was a man of apparently 40 years, with a tired expression and red eyes from having cried recently. In his right hand, he held a photograph of a blonde girl of approximately 5 years old. "Why should we trust you?" Valentine asked. "Because my daughter was also a victim of Walter Freeman," Ricardo replied, his voice choked, "and because I know where he took other children." The word "other" made everyone's blood run cold. "What other children?" Joanna asked, instinctively pulling Lily closer to her. "Children of businessmen who refused to sell their businesses. Walter doesn't just use violence against the adults. He kidnaps the children to force the parents to cooperate." Valentine opened the door completely, but remained tense. "Come in, but slowly." Ricardo entered the room, still holding the photograph. Lily approached him with the natural curiosity of children. "Who's the girl in the picture?" she asked. "My daughter, Amanda. She disappeared 3 months ago." "How did she disappear?" Sarah asked. Ricardo sat down heavily on the sofa. "I was a minority partner in a transportation company in Flagstaff. Walter wanted to buy the company for a very low price. When I refused, Amanda disappeared after school." "And you didn't look for the police?" Joanna asked. "I did. But Walter has contacts in the Flagstaff police. The investigation was filed as runaway minor. They said Amanda had run away from home due to family problems." "But she didn't run away," Valentine concluded. "No. A week after the disappearance, Walter approached me offering help to find my daughter. He said he had contacts who could locate her, but that he needed a favor in return." "What favor?" Sarah asked. "To sell my share of the transportation company to him for the price he had initially offered." Lily approached Ricardo even closer. "And you sold?" "I sold," he admitted, ashamed. "I thought he would return Amanda after that." "But he didn't return," Lily said, demonstrating once again her sharp perception. "No. He said Amanda was safe and well cared for, but that she needed to stay where she was until I learned to cooperate better." "Cooperate with what?" Valentine asked. "With other jobs. He blackmailed me into working as a private investigator for him. He said that if I didn't help in his businesses, I would never see my daughter again." The silence in the room was heavy. Everyone processed the revelation that Walter maintained a kidnapping scheme to coerce businessmen. "How many children does he have?" Joanna asked, her voice trembling. "From what I discovered, at least 4. All daughters of businessmen who initially refused to sell their businesses." "And where are they?" Sarah asked. "On an isolated farm, about 2 hours from here. A place that Walter bought years ago, officially for cattle breeding, but that he actually uses as a base for his operations." Valentine stood up abruptly. "We need to call the state police immediately." "It won't work," Ricardo said. "Walter has contacts even there, and if he knows he's been discovered, he'll disappear with the children." "Then what do you suggest?" Sarah asked. "That we give him what he wants." "No way," Joanna protested. "I'm not handing Lily over to that monster." "Not Lily," Ricardo clarified. "The sales papers for the bakeries, a fake transfer, just to buy us time and find out the exact location of the children." Lily, who had been quietly observing the conversation, suddenly spoke up. "I know where the farm is." Everyone turned to her. "How so, honey?" Joanna asked. "When I was on the street, I heard the men talking about a place where they took people who didn't obey. They said the name of the road and talked about a big house with an iron gate." "What road?" Ricardo asked, clearly surprised. "The road that goes to Flagstaff. After the old bridge, there's a blue sign with the name of a farm, and then you have to go a little further until you see the big gate." Ricardo confirmed with his head. "That's exactly where Amanda is." "How do you remember so many details?" "I always remember everything I hear," Lily replied naturally. "And they talked about taking a new girl there. A blonde girl who cried a lot." The description made Ricardo cover his face with his hands. "It's Amanda. My little Amanda." "Mr. Ricardo," Lily said, approaching him, "do you want your daughter back?" "More than anything in the world." "Then let's save her, and the other girls too." "Lily, that's very dangerous," Valentine protested. "I know, but I can help. I remember things that can help the police find the right place." Sarah had been silent, processing all the information. Finally she spoke. "Ricardo, you said Walter has contacts in the police, but what about the district attorney and the FBI?" "I don't know. Why?" "Because kidnapping minors is a federal crime, and if we get concrete evidence, we can trigger instances that Walter can't control." "What kind of evidence?" Valentine asked. "Recordings of the threats, the location of the farm, Ricardo's testimony about his daughter's kidnapping. And my memory," Lily added. "I can tell everything I heard about their plans." At that moment, Ricardo's phone rang. He looked at the screen and paled. "It's Walter," he said. "He must be wondering where I am." "Answer it," Sarah said, "but don't reveal where you are." Ricardo answered the call, putting it on speakerphone so everyone could hear. "Ricardo, where are you?" "You should be watching Valentine's house." "I'm nearby. Everything's quiet." "Great. I have a new job for you. You need to get the girl today." The silence in the room was absolute. Lily instinctively moved closer to Joanna. "Get her how?" Ricardo asked, trying to keep his voice normal. "The way we discussed. I need another guarantee for my negotiation with Valentine. And if he doesn't accept?" "He will accept. Especially when he knows he can visit the girl in the same place where Amanda is waiting for her daddy." The veiled threat made Valentine clench his fists. Ricardo looked at everyone in the room before responding. "Understood. Where do we meet?" "At the farm, at 6 in the afternoon. And Ricardo, don't disappoint me this time. You know what the price of disappointing is." The call ended, leaving everyone in tense silence. Ricardo put away the phone with trembling hands. "He wants me to deliver Lily by 6 o'clock, he said, "and he made it clear that Amanda will pay if I don't obey." "What time is it now?" Valentine asked. 2 in the afternoon, Sarah replied. "We have 4 hours to come up with a plan." "Or to save 4 innocent children," Lily said, demonstrating once again a wisdom that went beyond her 4 years. The next 4 hours passed like a whirlwind of planning and tension. Sarah had managed to make direct contact with a federal prosecutor in Phoenix, who immediately launched a special operation for kidnapping cases. Ricardo drew a detailed map of the farm, based on his previous visits, while Lily supplemented it with information she had heard on the streets. "The main house is in the center of the property," Ricardo explained, pointing on the paper. "There are 3 smaller buildings around it, one for employees, another for equipment, and a third that's where they keep them." "How do you know it's there?" Valentine asked. "Because one of the times I went to visit, I heard Amanda crying coming from that direction. Walter said they were employees' children, and that I shouldn't worry." Lily watched the map carefully. "How many men are guarding the place?" "At least 3 that I saw. But there could be more." "And do they have guns?" Joanna asked, worried. "Yes," Ricardo admitted. "That's why the FBI insists on doing a full operation, not just a makeshift rescue." The federal prosecutor, Dr. Miguel Santos, had arrived from Phoenix accompanied by a specialized team. He listened attentively as Lily recounted everything she remembered about the conversation she had witnessed. "This child has an extraordinary memory," he commented to Sarah. "She's providing details that will allow us to map out Walter's entire operation." "Dr. Santos," Lily said, "are you going to save Amanda and the other girls?" "Yes, we are, little one, but we need your help a little more." "What kind of help?" The prosecutor exchanged glances with Sarah before answering. "We need you to talk to Walter." "What do you mean?" Joanna protested immediately. "Nothing dangerous," Dr. Santos clarified. "Ricardo will carry a doll the size of Lily, covered with a blanket, pretending she's asleep or sick. Walter will want to talk to her to make sure it's really her." "And then?" Valentine asked. "Lily will make a call to him, pretending to be at the farm. Meanwhile, our teams will be surrounding the location." "It's too risky," Joanna said. "Mom," Lily said, "if I don't help, Amanda and the other girls will stay prisoners. And more children could be taken." The girls' courage impressed even the experienced officers. Dr. Santos knelt down to her level. "Lily, do you understand that you need to say exactly what we're going to rehearse, and that if something goes wrong, you must hang up the phone immediately?" "I understand. I'm good at memorizing things." At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the plan was in motion. Ricardo was driving towards the farm with a doll wrapped in a blanket in the back seat, while FBI teams positioned themselves discreetly around the property. At Valentine's house, everyone waited tensely for the moment of the call. "Remember," Dr. Santos said, "Lily will pretend to be scared and confused, that Ricardo took her against her will. This will make Walter lower his guard." At 5:40, Ricardo's phone rang. "Where's the girl?" It was Walter's voice. "She's here with me, but she's very scared and doesn't want to talk." "Put her on the phone, now!" Ricardo signaled to Dr. Santos, who was coordinating the operation via radio. It was time for Lily to enter the scene. "Hello," Lily said on the phone, managing to make her voice sound small and scared. "Hi, sweetheart, it's Mr. Freeman. You don't have to be afraid. I want to go home. Where are my mom and Mr. Valentine?" "They're fine. You're just going to stay here for a little while, until we resolve some adult things." "Here where? This place is dark and smells bad." Walter laughed. "It's just temporary. You'll meet other girls who are here. They'll be your friends." "What other girls?" "Oh, you'll see. One of them is named Amanda. You'll like her." The confirmation that Amanda was really there made Ricardo clench his fists. Dr. Santos signaled for Lily to continue. "Mr. Freeman, I heard a child crying. Is that normal? Sometimes the girls miss home, but it passes quickly. And if I promise not to tell anything about the bad men who hurt Mr. Valentine, will you let me go?" The question caught Walter off guard. "What bad men?" "The ones you told to burn Mr. Valentine with a hot iron. I saw everything." The silence on the other end of the line was long. When Walter spoke again, his voice was different, more tense, more dangerous. "What exactly did you see, girl?" "I saw you giving them money, and I heard when you said where Mr. Valentine kept the important things." You're lying. You were hidden when that happened. I wasn't hidden. I was on the street and saw you near the bank talking to the man with the snake on his arm. The specific description made Walter realize that Lily had really witnessed his meetings with the criminals. Listen carefully, girl. You're going to forget everything you saw and heard. Understand? But I can't forget. I always remember everything. Then you'll have to learn to keep quiet. The threat in Walter's voice made Dr. Santos signal for Lily to end the call. Mr. Freeman, the man who brought me, is saying that we have to go somewhere else now, she said. What other place? Ricardo shouldn't leave the farm. I don't know. He's nervous and wants to leave. Pass the phone to him. He got out of the car and is talking to other men outside. What other men? At that moment, Dr. Santos indicated that it was time to finalize. The siege was complete, and Walter had confirmed everything they needed. Mr. Freeman, there are many cars arriving here, cars with lights on top. What? What cars? It looks like police cars. And there are men running to the house. The line went silent for a few seconds, then they heard Walter shouting, "It's a trap! It's a trap!" The call ended abruptly. Operation in progress, Dr. Santos announced via radio. All teams, surround the perimeter. Top priority to the safety of the children. During the next 40 minutes, Valentine's house was in absolute silence. Everyone glued to the police radio, awaiting news. Lily had snuggled between Joanna and Valentine, exhausted by the emotional tension of pretending to be in captivity. Finally, the radio crackled. "Base, this is Team Alpha. 4 miners located and rescued alive, all in apparently stable condition." The relief in the room was palpable. Ricardo began to cry openly. "And Walter?" Dr. Santos asked via radio. "Detained without resistance. Tried to escape through the back of the property, but was intercepted by Team Bravo. Other suspects. 3 men detained, all armed but surrendered when they realized they were surrounded. 2 hours later, when the children were brought to the regional hospital for medical exams, Ricardo was reunited with Amanda. The blonde 5-year-old ran into her father's arms, crying and repeating, "Daddy, Daddy," as if it were the most beautiful word in the world. Lily watched the reunion with tears in her eyes. "Mr. Valentine, now all the families will be together again?" "Yes, little one, thanks to you. Not just because of me, it was because everyone worked together." Dr. Santos approached them. "Lily, you were very brave today. You helped save 4 girls. And now the bad men won't hurt anyone anymore? Not anymore. They'll be in jail for a long time." That night, Valentine's house was silent, but it was a silence of peace, not of fear. For the first time in weeks, everyone slept peacefully, knowing that the nightmare was over. But when Lily woke up the next morning, she had a question that would change everything once again. "Mr. Valentine, now that there's no more danger, are Mom and I going to keep living here?" Lily's question about the future of the family created an uncomfortable silence at the breakfast table. Valentine slowly stirred the sugar in his coffee. Joanna nervously played with her napkin, and Sarah, who had decided to stay a few more days until everything normalized, observed the dynamics between the three with professional and personal interest. "Why did you guys get quiet?" Lily asked, once again demonstrating her sharp perception. "Did I say something wrong?" "No, little one," Valentine replied. It's an important question that deserves a thoughtful answer. But I don't want a thoughtful answer. I want to know if we're going to continue being a family." The brutal simplicity of the child forced the adults to confront feelings they had been avoiding discussing. During the weeks of crisis, it had been easy to focus on survival and protection. Now, with the threat removed, they needed to decide what they really wanted for the future. "Lily," Joanna said carefully, "would you like to continue living here?" "I would, but only if you and Mr. Valentine want to, too." Valentine looked at Joanna, trying to decipher her feelings. "Joanna, what is your honest wish?" I don't know," she admitted. These have been the best days of my life in a long time. Working at the bakery, seeing Lily happy and safe, being part of something that feels like a real family. But, Sarah prompted, but I'm afraid of being a nuisance, of taking advantage of Mr. Valentine's kindness. And I'm afraid, Valentine said, surprising everyone, that you'll stay out of gratitude, not because you really want to. Lily jumped off the chair and positioned herself between the two adults. You guys are silly. Families don't stay together out of gratitude. They stay together because they like each other. And do you like each other? She asked, looking directly at Joanna and then at Valentine. The direct question from a 4-year-old made the two adults look at each other with an honesty they had been avoiding. There were, yes, feelings growing between them, an affection that went beyond the circumstance that had united them. I like Mr. Valentine a lot, Joanna admitted, blushing. And I like Joanna and Lily a lot, Valentine replied. More than I imagined it was possible to like someone again. Then why are you sad? Lily asked, genuinely confused. Because sometimes adults complicate simple things, Sarah said, interfering in the conversation. You three became a family during the crisis. The question is whether you want to continue being a family in peace. At that moment, the doorbell rang. It was Ricardo Mendez, accompanied by Amanda. The blonde girl hid timidly behind her father, still traumatized by the experience of captivity. I hope I'm not bothering you, Ricardo said. We wanted to thank you personally, especially Lily. Of course you're not bothering, Valentine said, inviting them in. Amanda watched Lily with curiosity. Are you the girl who helped my dad find me? I helped. Are you okay? I'm better now. Thank you. The encounter between the two girls was touching. Despite the age difference, Amanda was a year older, they connected immediately, united by the traumatic experience they shared indirectly. Lily, Ricardo said, your father talked about you a lot during the days she was imprisoned. She said that you were brave and that one day she would like to meet you. My father, Lily frowned, confused. Joe Miller, Ricardo clarified. Amanda was in the same building where some of the other girls had been previously. One of them had met your grandfather. How so? Joanna asked, interested. One of the girls who was released yesterday said that an elderly gentleman had worked on the farm a few months before he died. He talked about a special granddaughter who lived in town. Valentine felt a chill. Joe worked on Walter's farm? Apparently, yes. In the last months of his life, when he became too ill to work at the bakery. Why did he never tell me this? Valentine asked. Probably because he found out what was really going on there, Ricardo said. One of the girls said he was very sad and worried, that he talked about protecting his granddaughter from bad people. Lily processed this information in silence. My grandpa knew that Mr. Freeman was bad. It seems so, little one. And that was probably why he tried so hard to make sure you stayed away from that situation. The revelation added a new layer to the story. Joe, even sick and weak, had worked on Walter's farm and discovered his criminal activities. This explained why he had been so protective of Lily in his last months of life. There's one more thing, Ricardo said hesitantly. Amanda told me something about a conversation she overheard between Walter and his men. What conversation? Sarah asked. Walter knew about Lily for months. He knew that she had an exceptional memory and that she could be dangerous to his plans. You mean he was planning something against her specifically? Joanna asked, alarmed. Yes. The attack on Mr. Valentine wasn't just about forcing him to sell the bakeries. It was also a way to lure Lily out of the streets and put her in a position where she could be controlled. The silence in the room was absolute. Everyone realized that Lily had been a target from the beginning, not just an inconvenient witness. But why didn't he just grab her directly from the streets? Valentine asked. Because she was too smart. She always disappeared when strangers approached. Walter needed a way to make her trust and approach voluntarily. The attack was a trap to lure me in, Lily realized. He knew I was going to try to help. That's right, little one. He knew your kindness and knew you couldn't ignore someone in danger. The revelation that all the suffering had been orchestrated specifically to capture Lily left everyone shaken. But it also reinforced something important. The girl's courage had been both her vulnerability and her salvation. The important thing, Amanda said suddenly, with the sincerity of children, is that now we are all safe and together with our families. That's true, Lily agreed, and now we can be happy. About that, Sarah said, seizing the moment, I need to make an official proposal. Everyone turned to her. After observing you three during these weeks and considering Lily's evident well-being in this environment, I would like to officially recommend that Valentine and Joanna become co-legal guardians of the girl. What do you mean? Joanna asked. A joint adoption. You two would officially become Lily's parents, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Lily clapped her hands, clearly delighted with the idea. Does this mean we're going to be a real family on paper too? It means exactly that, Sarah confirmed. Valentine and Joanna looked at each other, both seeing in the other's eyes the same desire and the same fear. What if it doesn't work out? Joanna asked. What if we discover we're too different? Then you'll talk and figure it out like all families do, Lily said naturally. Grandpa Joe always said that family isn't about being the same. It's about choosing to take care of each other every day. The girl's wisdom, inherited from the grandfather who loved her so much, convinced the two adults that they were ready to take the next step. Yes, Valentine said, taking Joanna's hand. We want to be an official family. Yes, Joanna agreed, tears in her eyes. We want it very much. Ricardo and Amanda applauded, Sarah smiled with professional and personal satisfaction, and Lily ran to hug her new parents. Now, she said, we can start planning our first real family party. And for the first time in months, Valentine's house was filled with genuine laughter and plans for the future, instead of fear and worry about the present. 3 months had passed since Walter's arrest and the official start of the new family. Valentine's house had transformed completely. Lily's drawings decorated the walls, the constant aroma of fresh bread came from the kitchen where Joanna experimented with recipes she had learned from Joe, and the sound of laughter had replaced the silence that for years had dominated those rooms. The joint adoption was progressing well through the legal procedures, and Sarah had become more than a social worker. She was now a family friend who had dinner with them at least twice a week. The relationship between her and Valentine had evolved into something delicate and promising, creating the possibility that the family could grow even more. Daddy Valentine, Lily said on a sunny April morning, naturally using the title she had adopted for him, today is a special day. Why, little one? Because today is exactly 6 months since I saved you in the alley. Valentine stopped reading the newspaper and looked at the girl who was drawing at the kitchen table. She was right. It had been exactly 6 months since that day that changed all their lives. You're right, it is a special day indeed. And I thought of something, Lily continued without taking her eyes off the drawing. What thing? I want today to be the day that our family does something important for other families. Joanna, who was preparing lunch, approached them. What kind of important thing? Lily finally raised her eyes from the paper, revealing a drawing of a large house with many children playing in the yard. I want us to open a place for children who don't have a family, like I didn't have. A place where they can be safe until they find parents who really like them. The simplicity and generosity of the proposal left the two adults speechless. A girl who had suffered abandonment and trauma wanted to use her experience to help other children in similar situations. That would be a foster home, Joanna said, thinking about the practical implications. It would, Valentine confirmed. And it would be a beautiful project. Do you think we could do it? Lily asked, her eyes shining with hope. We could, Valentine replied, already visualizing the possibilities. We have resources, we have experience, and most importantly, we have our hearts in the right place. At that moment, the doorbell rang. It was Ricardo with Amanda, who had become a frequent visitor. The two girls had developed a solid friendship, united by the shared traumatic experience and the resilient personalities of both. "Hi, Aunt Joanna! Hi, Uncle Valentine!" Amanda shouted, running to hug them. She had naturally adopted the same affectionate titles that Lily used. "Amanda, do you want to see my new drawing?" Lily asked. "I want to." While the girls talked animatedly about the foster home project, Ricardo joined the adults in the living room. "How is Amanda adapting?" Joanna asked. "Better every day," Ricardo replied. "Therapy is helping a lot, and the friendship with Lily has been fundamental to her recovery." "And you? How are you dealing with everything?" Ricardo smiled, but there was a melancholy in his eyes. "I still have nightmares sometimes. Guilt for having worked for Walter, even if forced, but seeing Amanda happy again is worth anything." "You had no choice," Valentine said. "You did what any father would do to protect his daughter." "That's what Lily always tells me," Ricardo laughed. "That girl has a wisdom that impresses. Yesterday, she told Amanda that bad people can't make good people become bad too." That afternoon, unexpected visitors arrived who would bring significant changes to the future of the family. Dr. Miguel Santos, the federal prosecutor, arrived accompanied by an elegant woman in her 50s. "Mr. Valentine, I would like to introduce Dr. Marcia Oliveira, director of the Hope Foundation, an organization that works with the protection and care of minors." "Pleasure," Valentine said, greeting the visitor. "The pleasure is mine," Dr. Oliveira replied. "Dr. Santos told me about you, especially about Lily, and about a conversation you had today about opening a foster home." Lily, who had heard her name, approached timidly. "Are you the brave girl who helped save 4 children?" "Doctor," Oliveira asked, crouching down to be at Lily's level. "I helped, but everyone helped together," Lily replied modestly. "And now you want to help more children?" "I want to. Children who don't have a family need a safe place to stay." Dr. Oliveira smiled, clearly impressed. "And do you have any idea what that place would be like?" Lily ran to get her drawing and came back, explaining each detail with enthusiasm. "It would have small rooms so that the children don't feel lost, and a big kitchen where they could learn to cook, and a garden with flowers because flowers make people happy. And who would take care of these children? People who really like children, like my parents, like me." Dr. Santos exchanged glances with Dr. Oliveira. "Actually, we came here with a proposal." "What kind of proposal?" Joanna asked. "The Hope Foundation has the resources to establish a new foster care unit in the region," Dr. Oliveira explained. "But we need local partners who have not only the resources, but also the sensitivity necessary for the work." "And you would like us to be those partners?" Valentine asked. "Exactly. You have demonstrated an exceptional ability to create a loving family environment for a traumatized child, and Lily would be a kind of ambassador for the project, a child who went through the experience and can help others overcome their traumas." Lily clapped her hands. "Does that mean we're really going to be able to help?" "It means that you can become a family that helps form other families," Dr. Oliveira replied. At that moment, another unexpected visitor arrived. It was Kevin, Valentine's nephew, visibly thin and dejected, but with an expression of determination that didn't exist before. "Uncle," he said hesitantly, "can I talk to you?" Valentine hesitated, the memories of the betrayal still fresh, but Lily approached him. "Daddy Valentine, he looks different, more sad but more honest." The girl's observation made Valentine decide to listen to his nephew. "Uncle, I know I don't deserve forgiveness for what I did," Kevin began, "but I wanted you to know that these months in jail have changed me. I understood the harm I caused, not only to you, but to Lily, to Joanna." "What do you want, Kevin?" "I want to work. To work for real, earn my money honestly, and maybe one day be able to look in the mirror without feeling ashamed." "And why are you telling me this?" Because I heard about your project, and I thought that maybe I could help. Not with money, which I don't have, but with work. Lily approached Kevin, studying his face carefully. You're not going to do bad things anymore. Never again, Kevin promised, tears in his eyes. I learned that family is to protect, not to use. Then you can help, Lily decided. Everyone deserves a second chance. The ease with which the girl offered forgiveness impressed everyone present. There was a generosity in her that transcended her traumatic experiences. Uncle, Kevin said, can I work on the construction of the foster home without pay, just to contribute? Valentine looked at Joanna, who nodded subtly, then at Lily, who smiled encouragingly. You can, he said, but this will be a unique opportunity. If you disappoint again... I won't disappoint, Kevin promised. Never again. That night, after all the visitors had left, the family gathered in the living room to talk about the changes that were coming. Are you sure you want to take on such a big project? Joanna asked. I'm sure, Valentine replied. I feel like it's what Joe would want us to do. And you, Lily? Aren't you afraid of sharing your parents with other children? I'm not afraid, she replied. Love doesn't end when we divide it. It gets bigger. The next morning, Lily woke up earlier and found Valentine in the kitchen, drinking coffee and reading the newspapers. Daddy Valentine, she said, climbing onto a chair to be taller, can I tell you a secret? Of course, little one. Sometimes I dream about Grandpa Joe. And yesterday he appeared in my dreams smiling a lot. And what did he say? He said he was proud of our family, and that the new house will help many children find what I found. What did you find? Lily smiled, her eyes shining with the wisdom that made her special. A place where I can just be a child, without fear, without hunger, and with people who really love me. And at that moment, Valentine knew that they were on the right path to creating something truly special. A year after the day a 4-year-old girl saved a man in the alley behind the bakery, Sedona, Arizona celebrated the inauguration of something extraordinary. The Joe Miller House, as Lily had insisted on naming the project, stood majestically at the entrance to the town, a welcoming 2-story building surrounded by colorful gardens where children played under the loving supervision of specialized educators. Lily, now 5.5 years old, wore a light blue dress and held firmly the hands of Valentine and Joanna, her official parents for 4 months since the joint adoption was finalized. Beside them, Sarah wore a yellow dress and a radiant smile. The previous week, she and Valentine had announced their engagement, transforming the family of 3 into a family of 4. Are you ready? Asked Dr. Miguel Santos, who had become a close friend of the family and was coordinating the inauguration ceremony. Ready as can be, replied Lily, who had rehearsed her speech for weeks. The gathered crowd included local authorities, representatives of the Hope Foundation, families from the region, and familiar faces who had been part of the transformative journey of that last year. Ricardo was present with Amanda, who now regularly frequented the house as a junior volunteer, helping younger children to adjust. Kevin was also there, tanned and healthy, after months working on the construction, alongside a girlfriend he had met during the project, a volunteer psychologist who saw beyond his past mistakes. Even Dan Anderson and Carol were present, after completing community service and undergoing psychological counseling for gambling addiction. They had become active advocates of addiction prevention programs, using their own experience to warn other families. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Marcia Oliveira said into the microphone, today we inaugurate not just a building, but a dream that was born from the heart of a child who understood that her pain could transform into healing for others. The crowd applauded as Lily approached the microphone, which was adjusted to her height. My name is Lily, she began with the confidence she had developed over the year. And a while ago I didn't have a family and lived on the street. But good people helped me, and now I have a beautiful family. Her clear voice echoed through the silent crowd. My Grandpa Joe always said that when we receive love, we have to plant love for other people too. This house is to plant love for children who haven't found their families yet. She paused, looking at Valentine and Joanna. My parents taught me that family isn't about having the same blood. It's about choosing to take care of each other every day. And here in this house, the children will learn that too. Amanda approached and handed Lily a small plaque. This plaque has a phrase that Grandpa Joe always said, Lily continued. Mom Joanna taught me how to read, so I can tell you what's written. She raised the plaque where it was engraved. Love does not diminish when it is shared. It multiplies. That's why, Lily said, I declare open the Joe Miller House, where love will multiply every day. The crowd erupted in applause as Lily cut the inaugural ribbon with a pair of scissors decorated especially for her. The doors of the house opened, revealing a welcoming interior with colorful rooms, a children's library, a pedagogical kitchen, and small but cozy bedrooms where children in vulnerable situations could find temporary security. During the guided tour, Valentine watched Lily excitedly explaining each room to the visitors, pointing out details she had suggested during the planning. There was something deeply moving about seeing a child who had suffered so much abandonment, creating spaces of care for other children. She is extraordinary, Dr. Santos commented, approaching Valentine. She is indeed, he agreed. Sometimes I think she saved much more than my life that day. She saved my soul, and the souls of many others, added Joanna, who had joined them. Kevin is completely transformed. Dan and Carol found purpose helping other addicts. Ricardo discovered that he can use his experience to protect other families. It's the Lily effect, Sarah said, smiling. She has this ability to make people want to be better. At that moment, an exciting surprise awaited the family. A young couple approached them, accompanied by a social worker. Mr. Valentine, Mrs. Joanna, said the social worker, I would like to introduce Carlos and Marina Ferreira. They would like to talk to Lily. Lily approached curiously, studying the couple with her observant eyes. Hi, Lily, Marina said nervously. We're Carlos and Marina. We've been trying to adopt a child for 3 years, and when we heard your story... You want to adopt me? Lily asked, surprising the couple. No, Carlos laughed. You already have a beautiful family. We wanted to meet you because your courage inspired us to volunteer here at the house, and we wanted to ask you something special. What? Marina knelt down to Lily's level. We wanted you to help us get to know the children who will live here, so we can find the one who needs parents like us. Lily's eyes sparkled. You want me to be like a bridge between you and the children? Exactly, Carlos confirmed. You understand better than anyone what these children are feeling. I accept, Lily said without hesitation, but with one condition. What? You have to promise that you will love the child you choose the same way my parents love me, forever, even when it's difficult. The maturity of the requirement touched the couple. We promise, Marina said, with tears in her eyes. As the sun set over Sedona, Arizona, the first phase of the inauguration came to an end. The first 5 children, who would be welcomed into the house, arrived with their small luggage, accompanied by social workers. Lily greeted them at the door, introducing herself as a child who also needed a temporary home until she found her forever family. Don't be afraid, she said to a 3-year-old boy who was crying softly. Here it's safe, and there are people who like to take care of children. How do you know? Asked a 6-year-old girl suspiciously. Because I was scared at first too, but look, she pointed to Valentine and Joanna, now I have the best parents in the world. That night, after all the children were settled under the care of the night staff, the assembled family returned home. Lily was exhausted but radiant. Daddy Valentine, Mom Joanna, Aunt Sarah, she said, using the affectionate title she had adopted for her future stepmother. Can I ask one more important question? Of course, little one, Valentine replied. Do you think Grandpa Joe would be proud of what we did today? Joanna knelt down and hugged her daughter. I'm sure he's very proud, not only of what we did, but mainly of who you have become. And I think, added Valentine, that he is happy to know that his name will be forever linked to a place where children find hope. And love, Lily completed. Lots of love. 3 months later, something magical happened. Carlos and Marina adopted Pedro, a 4-year-old boy who had arrived at the house on the day of the inauguration. Lily had made a point of introducing them, and the connection was immediate and deep. "Lily," Pedro said on the day he left the house with his new parents, "thank you for helping me find my family." "You're welcome," she replied. "Now you can help other children too, telling them that real families exist." 6 months after the inauguration, the Joe Miller House had facilitated 8 successful adoptions and temporarily housed 23 children. Lily, now 6 years old, attended the local school where she was known for her exceptional memory and her kindness to classmates who were going through difficulties. Valentine had expanded the bakery chain, creating a program where young people in vulnerable situations learned professions related to baking. Joanna directed the pedagogical kitchen of the foster home, teaching children to cook while creating affectionate memories associated with food. Sarah had left her job as a social worker to dedicate herself fully to the administration of the Joe Miller House, applying all her experience to a project she considered the most significant of her career. On a warm summer afternoon, exactly 2 years after the attack that had changed everything, Lily made a discovery that touched the whole family. While organizing some old belongings of Joe that Joanna had kept, she found a diary that had never been opened. "Mom, look at this," she said, showing a worn leather notebook. Joanna carefully opened the diary, finding the shaky handwriting of her father in the last weeks of his life. "If something happens to me," she read aloud, "I hope my Lily finds a family who loves her as she deserves. She has a special heart, capable of healing wounds she doesn't even imagine. One day she will use her kindness to help many people." Tears streamed down Joanna's face as she continued reading. "Valentine has always been like a son to me. If destiny allows them to meet, I know he will take care of her as I would. And perhaps together they will create something beautiful for other children who need love." The silence in the room was broken by the small but firm voice of Lily. Grandpa knew this was going to happen. "How do you know?" Valentine asked. "Because true love always knows what's best for the people we love." And as the sun set once again over the historic town of Sedona, a girl who had begun her journey begging on the streets was now the heart of an extraordinary family and the inspiration for a project that transformed lives. Lily had learned that sometimes the greatest tragedies turn into the greatest blessings, and that a small child with a big heart can indeed change the world. One life at a time, one family at a time, one act of love at a time. The Joe Miller House would continue to operate for decades, helping hundreds of children find their families. And always, on the entrance plaque, would be the phrase that summarized everything: "Love does not diminish when it is shared, it multiplies." Because Lily had proven that this was true.